Hey everybody, thanks for checking this video, and hopefully it helps a little bit with the understanding of how the brachial plexus starts from the spinal cord. If you guys have any questions, feel free to email me right here at this email, jjacob@clarkson.edu. So let's get started. I'll try to keep it short and simple. Today we'll be covering the anterior rami of C5 to T1. These are the nerve roots that will give rise to the brachial plexus. Now please pay special attention to the fact that when I say C5 to T1, the roots I'm talking about are C5, C6, C7, C8, and T1. Even though there isn't a cervical vertebra at C8, there is a nerve root called C8 that emerges from the intervertebral foramina between vertebrae C7 and T1. Keep this special location in mind for another video we'll do, and we'll put a pin in it for later, but we'll mention it right now. I know the question you guys are all wondering is, what's an anterior rami? In the last picture I put up in your enhanced learning section, it was a cross section of the spinal cord. It kind of looks like a butterfly within a circle. The structure is extremely important. It has two sides, posterior and anterior. Now we'll pretend the person is facing the ground, and this will create that anterior and posterior kind of differentiation. But when you do neuroscience or neurology, you'll probably be looking at this on a daily basis. So let's break it down a little. We'll call this side posterior and this side anterior, and they both have horns. Now the posterior side has posterior horns and the anterior side has anterior horns. Typically, the posterior horn is the one that provides you with sensory information, and the anterior does motor. Now sensory, when we say sensory, it's just your ability to feel whether the floor is carpet or if it's wood, and motor is what causes your muscles to contract. Now, when we break it down even further, we can see that the posterior nerves will travel from the posterior horn, and it'll reach something known as a dorsal root ganglion. Now, I'm just going to draw the skeleton of this kind of nerve root right here for now. And these little bumps that I'm drawing is where the dorsal root ganglion will be. Now, a ganglion is just a group of cell bodies where synapsing occurs. But the posterior side, we'll see, will have two sides. We'll synapse at this dorsal root ganglion. Remember, it's sensory, and it will travel, and then it will divide into anterior and posterior divisions. Now, this will happen on both sides. So again, it will synapse, and it will divide into anterior and posterior divisions. Now, the anterior horns will have nerves right over here, and it doesn't have a ganglion, so it travels straight down and divides into anterior and posterior divisions. Again, it divides into anterior and posterior divisions. Now, you can see that these divisions eventually will have both the sensory and the motor nerves in it. So these are called sensory motor nerves. Specifically, your anterior rami will have sensory motor nerves, and we can see that this is the anterior side, so these are the anterior rami. And when we talk about the nerve roots for the brachial plexus, we already said these were anterior rami. So these are the roots that we talk about, which are sensory motor nerves. Alright guys, hopefully this helps you get started with the brachial plexus, and we'll be in touch and talk again.